More than ever before, Americans are aware that voting is a crucial right. Every day, the radio, the TV, and the internet blare the message, "Vote! Your vote counts!" As our country ramps up toward this crucial election, being aware of your rights when it comes to voting is just being an American. However, there is a large group in the United States who lack this vital right: felons, both current and former. More than 6 million Americans are currently ineligible to vote due to a felony conviction. Most states allow felons to appeal for the right to vote, but the process is expensive and requires legal knowledge that is not usually available to those who have been imprisoned. Some states don't have an appeal process. These legally imposed barriers hurt and trap Americans who are already in an at-risk position. All citizens should be allowed to shape the country where they live, including those who have been imprisoned for a felony. There's a historical link between incarceration and the suppression of constitutional rights. The widespread use of our country's prison system as a means to remove rights from Americans is rooted in slavery. Not allowing former felons the right to vote condones America's racist past, violates basic civil liberties, and robs already vulnerable Americans of their voice. For these reasons, voting rights should be given to all Americans, whether or not they have committed a felony. Prison being utilized as a means to suppress citizens in the United States began with targeted policing, which was a calculated response to slavery being outlawed in 1865. The 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery in the United States, reads, "Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction." Groups in the South immediately began organizing, created a series of laws known as the Black Codes. Under these laws, Black populations faced racialized policing. In the event of noncompliance, they were punished by fines, imprisonment, and slavery. States passed statutes which restricted Black citizens' occupations to field work or other manual labor. They were also stripped of their right to vote. These new laws meant the organization of new police forces to enforce them. In previous years, a desire for further social control of slaves led to the creation of slave patrols, officers designed to police slave populations. Now out of work, the slave patrol were the perfect candidates for the job. Targeting from police became a normal occurrence for Black Americans and fostered a mistrustful relationship between law enforcement and the Black community, which remains today. The crucial text, "except as a punishment for crime," had allowed state governments to recreate the social parameters of slavery and remove essential rights from Black Americans. Partly in response to the Black Codes, the 14th and 15th Amendments were ratified. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves, guaranteed equal protection of the laws. However, it preserved states' rights to restrict the individual right to vote due to criminal conviction. The 15th Amendment stated that voting rights could not be denied or abridged by the United States, or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Technically, this law gave Black men the right to vote. However, continued policing ensured that this right was suppressed. If a Black person was charged with a crime, they could not vote. Voter suppression, directed at Black Americans, was prevalent across the country. Compulsory literacy tests and poll taxes were common practices. As America progressed as a country, it became clear that these practices were unjust. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 outlawed the majority of common voter suppression tactics, although it took many years for states to correct their procedures. However, one glaring issue endures today: felony disenfranchisement. The foundation of modern police forces and prisons was rooted in removing rights from Americans, including voting. Modern illegal voter suppression affects millions of voters in America in a variety of insidious ways. It disproportionately targets low-income communities and people of color. Black Americans are incarcerated at 5.1 times as often as white Americans are. Hispanic Americans are 1.4 times as likely to be incarcerated. Additionally, based on data from the Prison Policy Initiative, incarcerated people in general have a lower median income from non-incarcerated counterparts of similar ages. These statistics show that the groups most vulnerable to voter suppression in our country are the same groups who are the most vulnerable to incarceration. It indicates a structural issue. The groups in America who face the most adversity as a result of the law should be allowed to use their vote to make changes that may benefit them. The primary argument in favor of felony disenfranchisement is pretty simple. If you're not willing to follow the law, you should not be a part in creating laws. This is a logical argument. If someone's breaking the law, they must not respect the law as a whole. What this argument ignores, however, is how incarceration is carried out and who it affects. It ignores the factors that can lead someone to prison. People who are born into poverty must work against many disadvantages, including increased policing in their communities. The rise of mass incarceration did not result from an increase in crime trends, but from tough-on-crime policies, stringent drug policies, stop and frisk, and harsher treatment of parole. These policies lead to a disproportionate impact for low-income communities. Even those who intend to commit a crime usually choose the act out of desperation. For the average person committing a crime, the issue is not disrespect for the law or disrespect for our country. The issue is that crime is a major symptom of poverty and oppression. Low-income people and people of color stand to benefit the most from voting to change policies that negatively affect them. They should be able to cast their vote and allow their voice to be heard on all issues, but especially on policies that positively benefit those in poverty. Removing a vote for someone who would vote for an increased minimum wage, increased funding for schools, and universal health care is in many ways the same as giving the vote to a person who would vote against these things. Removing this crucial right disenfranchises the most vulnerable in our country. The philosopher John Rawls proposed a theory in 1971. He believed that in order for society to be fully just, the most disadvantaged in that society, must be prioritized and made equal. He writes, "Among the essential features of this situation is that no one knows his place in society, his class position or social status, nor does anyone know his fortune in the distribution of natural assets and abilities, his intelligence, his strength, and the like. The principles of justice are chosen behind a veil of ignorance. This ensures that no one is advantaged or disadvantaged in the choice of principles by the outcome of natural chance or the contingency of social circumstances." Rawls's theory purports that if the rules of society were created by a group who did not know their economic status or race or other deciding factors, they would ensure that the lowest of society would be treated fairly, for fear that they would be a member of that lower class. Obviously, this scenario is not possible. What Rawls is pointing out is that in order to create an equal society, the most vulnerable groups must be made equal. The criminal justice system is broken, but if we can agree that the most vulnerable of Americans are the ones who are policed and prosecuted the most, we can also agree that our country should strive for equity and give disadvantaged Americans, including felons, the tools to make their voices heard. Thank you.